Hey guys, Virginia here. I would like to welcome you to the COLAB, the Central Ontario Laboratory. We are here to educate, inspire, and activate. Welcome to the COLAB.
Hey there, I'm Virginia. This is the hair that lives on top, and today we have a very special guest.
That's right, and I'm Jamie Dorn. I'm the Executive Director of Research, Innovation, and Entrepreneurship at Georgian College, and our special guest today is Ross Bigelow. He is a faculty member, and he's also an entrepreneur. He knows all kinds of cool stuff, so we're going to ask him lots of great questions. So welcome, Ross.
Hi, Jamie. Thank you for inviting me. This is awesome. My name's Ross Bigelow. I'm the program coordinator of the Artificial Intelligence program at Georgian. And as you mentioned, I work a lot with the Henry Bernick Center and our Applied Research Center to work with companies to help them make their products smart.
Awesome. So cool. So talking about smart products, that sort of jumps right into, tell us a little bit about your entrepreneurial side.
A lot of what I do on the entrepreneurial side is I'm currently working with a company developing a smart wearable. We've kind of moved beyond the Internet of Things and are now starting to figure out what to do with all of this data that we're collecting. So specifically, we're building on the Apple Watch platform for vulnerable populations. This would include children with autism, seniors with dementia and Alzheimer's. And basically what we're doing is monitoring the bio information from the Apple Watch and kind of then feeding that into a system to monitor their sort of daily activity of life and sort of keeping track on, are they still being as active as they were, or is there some other challenges, or has there been a decline in activity and things like that?
Right. So does it like alert them personally, or is it to alert their doctors and caregivers?
It's meant for, it can do both. The primary focus right now is on caregivers, so helping that family circle of care. So inside there, we have a routine builder as well, where the caregivers can, say, put together different exercise routines, different therapy routines, different tasks for them to do throughout the day. And then what we're doing is following up and making sure that people are completing their tasks, and then also, again, just kind of monitoring their daily activity.
So what's the company called, or what's the product called?
The product is iCan Care. And so the company is iCan Interactive.
Cool.
And so we've been developing this solution for about 4 years now. And we're just on the cusp of doing some R&D with a number of healthcare providers to roll it out to a larger population.
Wow.
Amazing.
So that on top of being a dynamic faculty member.
I find that it helps both help feed into it, because when you're teaching something, you're having to research and have a project and something you're developing yourself. And at the same time, being challenged by students every day really helps you hone your skills and figure out new technologies that can then be used in commercial ventures.
Since we're talking about artificial intelligence here, can you tell us a little bit about the future of artificial intelligence?
Sure. That's a very broad question.
Yes.
I mean, really, for at least the last decade, companies have been storing and collecting data. And now the question is, what do they do with it? Right. And really, it always comes down to two things: either improve efficiency or capture new markets or grow market share. And by using this sort of information and feeding it into, say, an AI system, the companies can find these efficiencies or find their patterns in consumer behavior. And that could influence things like product placement, location of stores, all sorts of different things, predicting when you're going to walk into the store even. So then that helps sort of end to end, right? Everything from supply chain to scheduling staff to even, okay, we have too many widgets this week, so we're going to put a sale on widgets to try to balance out our inventory and all that sort of stuff. And so an AI system can help the companies achieve those types of efficiencies.
And like these tasks that the AI is doing, some of them would have been done by people in the past. Others would be like new that humans can't do because it's too big of an analysis job.
Absolutely.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. Well, I think Walmart's collecting about 1.5 terabytes of data on consumer behavior every day.
Okay.
Holy,
So that's a lot of data.
right.
So to have sort of a data analyst comb through all that manually would be an extremely intensive
Yeah, impossible.
process,
Yeah.
right? So
Mhm.
now by having an AI system that you just sort of feed the parameters, you define the goals, and then you allow essentially the software to write itself to figure out what it is that you're trying to achieve and then how it goes about those efficiencies and what it produces as output is kind of open-ended.
And there's tons of this AI stuff going on in our online world too, right? Like to drive advertising
Oh,
and stuff.
absolutely.
Should we be concerned with all that?
Depends on which side of the equation you're on.
I
Uh,
suppose.
AI is here, companies are using it, and it is a competitive advantage for a large number of companies.
Hmm.
So, and then really what's going to distinguish companies in the future is how well they're leveraging AI, how well their data models are defined, and really what are they doing with it, right? And we're seeing
Yeah.
whole new industries created that are totally disrupting other industries, right?
Hmm.
We
So that,
obviously know what Tesla's been doing, and Tesla primarily is a software company for the most part,
Hmm.
right? So everything that they're doing through the autonomous vehicles and all that sort of stuff, here's a little startup company that 5 years ago is now totally displacing an industry from 100 years ago.
hmm.
Right.
So I guess that raises some ethical concerns with when it comes to artificial intelligence.
Oh, absolutely. There's two main ethical concerns around AI that I see. The big ones being privacy and bias.
Hmm.
Hmm.
If we have a world where everybody has dash cams that are interconnected, that are maybe sending everybody's license plates, that's kind of geotagging everybody else, that's now a situation where certainly when you have like an Amber Alert or a crisis like that,
Hmm.
it does help find individuals, but it is obviously very privacy invasive, right?
Hmm.
And
Sure.
so when you start to take all of this data that's out there and start to build profiles on people that can and sort of look at that data in a different way, that's where those privacy concerns come up, right? And then certainly with respect to bias, depending on what your sample data was originally that you feed into the AI
Oh yeah.
system, if you're not properly accounting for diversity of populations, whether it's age, sex, like any sort of property, that could be a big, big problem. Because
Hmm.
you
Now,
kind
are
of,
there any companies out there that are doing a really good job with sort of an artificial intelligence automation, or maybe figuring out things like possibly TikTok and the way that its algorithm works?
if we're talking about on the social side, I think TikTok is probably doing the best of all of the social networks currently.
Hmm.
Um, Essentially, your attention is a commodity, right? And these
Yeah.
companies are being paid through advertising as well as harvesting kind of information about your profile. You're essentially the product. So the more time that you spend on these platforms, that directly increases their revenue pretty dramatically. So TikTok does a really good job of sort of analyzing what type of videos are you interested in looking at in the moment, right? So
Hmm.
maybe right now, Virginia, you really are into cat videos,
Absolutely.
and then tomorrow might be something
I don't
else.
believe that. Cats? You don't like
cat
cats.
cat videos are 50% of my TikTok.
It's 50% of the internet.
Yeah. Or you might be looking at doing a new maker video or something like that, or learning a new skill or that sort of stuff, right? The whole DIY piece. And so those algorithms are highly, highly refined, right? Because we're talking about millions and millions of people providing input on what do you like,
Hmm.
what don't you like. This is right down to how many seconds did you actually watch the video,
Yeah.
right? So
Yes.
if it's a 60-second video and you watch 45 seconds, that's a measure. If you
Yeah.
only watch 3 seconds of it, it means you probably didn't like it. So then the algorithm is going to be adjusted to not send you similar type videos, right? And you kind of start going down this never ending hole of different videos that just kind of keep capturing your attention.
Yes, for sure.
Are our devices listening to us?
Yes.
Is it Google? Is it everything? Is it Amazon? Like who's listening? What apps? Like,
I mean, anytime you have voice, right, which actually voice is sort of the next big computer human interaction platform,
yeah.
right? Being able to talk to your devices and get answers and responses, and it's just a little bit more natural than having to look at a screen and
sure.
all
Yeah.
that sort of stuff. So AI is playing a big part in the conversational space. So I think that's going to be a huge market in the next 5 years.
Yep.
I mean, essentially where we saw the web in the early 2000s is kind of where voice is today.
Oh,
Right.
cool.
Now, to answer your question, who's listening? I mean, this is where you have to really pay attention to the permissions that you're giving applications on your mobile devices,
Yep.
right? Facebook Messenger was sort of notorious for that you're basically giving them permission to turn on your microphone and listen anytime.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where if you're happen to be talking about cat treats or something like that, all of a sudden you start seeing advertisements in your browsers for cat treats. Right? And that again comes back to building your consumer profile, and that's what these companies are doing, and primarily with the goal of selling that to advertisers.
Awesome.
And I had heard too that maybe this is true, that the ads that you might be seeing on your social media platform are not necessarily things that you have said in emails and stuff, but it's the people in your close circle. So like if your brother or your friend was searching, a new GM truck, you might see that in your list as well, list of ads. Have you heard that?
Oh, absolutely. And this is where the different platforms, and I'm not going to call it any specific platform, but if you're having a lot of instant messaging conversations with one of your friends, that helps establish a rating as to how strong that relationship is.
Right.
So if you're sending like 500 messages a week to an individual, therefore their preferences for things and their shopping habits become an influencer to the marketing material that you see online.
Interesting.
Man, that's fascinating.
Yeah, and I mean, same goes for videos and preferences and things like that. And this is where, again, bias starts to come into play because, again, as we heard through the last US election, you were kind of getting these AI algorithms feeding people what they wanted to hear.
Yep.
Based on their social circles, depending on certain political views. And that's where we started saying to the social media companies, hey, hold up, we got to hold you accountable for some of this disinformation. And it becomes very problematic for them because they're essentially saying, look, we're a platform. What people are saying, we can't censor, control, or moderate,
Yeah.
right? Hundreds of millions of messages every week. So there is sort of that intrinsic bias to, I mean, if Virginia goes for a particular fashion style, all her friends are probably going to be influenced by that. And so there is some of that affinity that is a good thing. But when it starts going, where do you draw the line, right? When does it become too far to really kind of start to create kind of what we're seeing in the US with a real polarization
division happening
of society that's basically coming from the types of posts and things that people are interacting with online.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
It could go too far, I guess. And then if we take it another step further, we've got, Elon Musk saying that, and others too, that we are not that far away from having a AI system that is as smart as the smartest person on the planet. And, that's maybe a different kind of AI or maybe the next level up. What do you think about that?
Bridging into the singularity.
You're getting there.
Yeah, it's the whole concept of singularity. I mean, depending on which interpretation you go with, I mean, is it kind of the whole rise of the machines like we've seen in a lot of Hollywood movies? that sort of just take over and now become the masters of humanity in some form? Or what does that look like, right? And I think, yes, absolutely, we are very close. I mean, there is the
Well,
whole open AI initiative that you basically give an AI a topic and it will produce a full script of something for you automatically.
I think what Elon Musk was getting at in the short term, rather than sort of our big supercomputer that's as smart as the entire planet, he was talking more about a single company owning an AI machine, like a computer, that is as smart as the smartest person. So you could go up to that thing and say, invent a drug for this or do that or whatever, and it would just do it because it's smart enough to do it and know what to do. And he said we are really close to that. And his warning was, the second you have a company that has a machine like that is the moment when the entire world is in jeopardy, because you could essentially take over the world with a set of computers that were that smart.
Going into supervillain territory.
Yeah. Exactly. I was like, and that did pique my interest. I was like,
So if we're talking about
true.
AI taking over things, is AI technology a threat to jobs?
Short answer, yes.
Mm-hmm.
There's anytime you have a technology paradigm shift, it is going to disrupt your labor market. I mean, we're already seeing, I think in the US, 25% of jobs are in the retail sector. And we already know kind of what's happening to a lot of the larger retailers in the US because of Amazon, who's obviously heavily invested in leveraging AI to help promote certain products, right? And again, drive your shopping habits to an online environment. Sort of what Jamie had suggested around not only the pharmaceutical companies, but even just like the retail, right? Is anything that you can do to better engage and capture or market your service offerings, as well as potentially adjust your service offerings, right? So, I mean, if you take a fashion company on the other side of the spectrum, Jamie. So basically, if a clothing manufacturer doesn't make a particular color or a particular style or a certain combination, the AI could basically drill into consumer sentiment around, hey, I think this would be an amazing new line of clothing, right?
Okay.
And so you potentially have that disruption happening end to end, right?
Right.
And
So
then
the computer conceives of the need or recognizes the need, then triggers the product could be made and makes a way for it to be sold and distributed to the consumer, cutting out everybody in the chain.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And then, I mean, even in the trucking industry, which is a massive industry, moving goods and services around, I mean, the whole autonomous vehicle is going to severely disrupt that. I was reading an article last week that a lot of the voice actors in video games now are kind of getting a little disgruntled because we're now in a time where in video games, instead of having static scripts that are kind of narrated from, the AI will invent dialogue.
Oh,
Right?
cool.
Kind of like if you're playing
Yeah, so we can talk on the fly and just like, hey, shopkeeper, how's it going? And then they would ad lib some script.
exactly. So that's changing a lot of different sectors, but at the same time now the gamer experience is going to be much more immersive, right? Because potentially in that environment, you could have an avatar that's talking about real world current events, right? Or now you're crowdsourcing responses from all the other players to see were particular quests favorable, and if so, then that kind of steers the AI towards, hey, you might like to do this sort of engagement or things like that.
Interesting. It's like if you just really like fighting dragons, maybe it's just going to say, hey, there's a couple more dragon battles you could go do.
Exactly.
Play a little longer.
Yeah, that makes me think, Ross, like how close would we be to being able to do like voice-driven computer programming? You know, so I could say to my computer, write me a program that does this.
Well, and that's really what I think Elon Musk was talking about. I mean, we are really on the cusp of that,
Yeah.
Oh.
right? I mean, that's sort of the whole premise of machine learning is you're basically defining the parameters, providing some training data, and then say, go figure this out.
Yeah.
And then you could do things like your regression, your classification, right? Is this a picture of a dog or a cat?
Or a
Right.
muffin. Yeah.
Yeah. The whole facial recognition, the whole understanding your preferences for things like climate control in your house, the whole, okay, my phone, I'm on my way home. So we're branching into the whole Internet of Things and home automation. I mean, there is just so many applications.
I
Well,
do enjoy an automated house. I do enjoy having some of my lights that I have controlled by, like, oh, when I get home, turn this on.
Or just put a motion sensor in a certain place, and then that can automate a number of
A
other
series
locations.
of events, yeah.
And it's getting to the point now where it can be, you don't necessarily have to hire a programmer to do this type of stuff. It's all consumer facing. The average person can kind of drag and drop and build these little routines for whatever it is you're trying to do.
Awesome. So,
Pretty
Jamie, do
cool.
you have any more questions for Ross?
well, I was going to circle back to the autonomous vehicle thing because,
Yeah.
I watched some video and I'd have to dig it up again to find it, but it was talking about autonomous vehicles. And when most people think about it, they think, okay, it means my car is going to drive me to work, or the bus drives itself, or the transport truck full of supplies is driving itself. But this was implying that, if you had real autonomous vehicles, you could totally transform retail and the service industry, because you don't have to start thinking about the vehicle as a transportation device anymore. It's just something that comes to you. So, like, the example was, if you wanted to go shopping or buy a pair of shoes, you could just call up the shoe truck and it would drive to your house, and you could go out and, pick out your shoes, and then it would pop them out, try them on, whatever, and then, yep, got a new pair of shoes. And then the thing drives away. So what do you think about that? Like, is that totally feasible, or is that just insane?
I mean, I would want that.
The shoe truck's coming. It rings a different bell than the ice cream truck.
Yeah, like the knife sharpener used to come by, or the ice cream
Yeah.
truck. Now it's
Clang,
shoes.
clang, clang. It's shoes. So what do you think, though? Like, that kind of thing. Like, it's almost traveling retail, or you can imagine
So
anything.
I mean, technology wise, absolutely, that's totally feasible. And I was about to say I wasn't sure about consumer acceptance before Virginia got all really excited about it.
I mean, I don't have to go into a store to go buy my I can, like, call the shoes to me
Yeah.
and be like, it's just all the shoes. And I can be like, yep, you could put in, I'm a size, between a 6.5 and a 7.5. That's what kind of shoes I'm looking for. I'm looking for running shoes, and they're just like, all right. They send out a
Here
truck
they go.
that has a
Yeah,
whole bunch
they-
of 6 to 7.5
Exactly.
shoes. Yeah,
I
it'd
think
be
I think
great.
one of the examples in the talk that I heard was about traveling convenience store. So you could dial it up, and it's got a variety of basic stuff. You can get your chips and pop and cigarettes or whatever else you were looking for. And I thought, okay, I could see how that would be, or like a barbecue truck or a pizza truck. So it drives up, cooks you a fresh pizza right in your driveway.
Oh my God, that reminds me of Fifth Element and that sort of thing, where they have, like, the flying cars that
Oh,
just
yeah.
sort of, like, float around, and it's like,
The
oh, we'll
soup
have dinner on the
ship
go
comes
today.
and brings you
Yeah.
your soup.
Yeah.
I did like that. Yeah.
All those examples, I mean, there's very tangible efficiencies to be gained, right? You are relying on people to come to your storefront. You're not having to maintain a retail location with all of the other costs involved, right? You essentially have a vehicle just kind of dispatched out to directly to your consumers. And then there could be an added benefit because now you're not necessarily bound to regular business hours.
Yeah.
either,
Yeah.
Right.
And not
So,
even to the roads. It could be a drone.
Ah,
absolutely. I
It could
mean,
be a flying pizza oven.
during the pandemic, the whole lockdown, and I mean, if you had a plumbing emergency or something like that where you just broke a fitting, being able to get that dispatch to you
It's hard.
regardless of time of day and
Yeah.
delivered to you in a quick, efficient way is huge, right? So
And
not
that's
only,
kind of like, if you circle back now to the AI, like that would be a logistical nightmare for a traditional company. How to deliver like a single plumbing part to your house within an hour. But AI could figure that out. And
oh,
then if you had
absolutely.
a bunch of drones, a robot picks the thing off the shelf, puts it down the line, goes onto the drone takes off, delivers it to your house.
Yeah.
Could all happen
Or how do you stack the
so
individual
quickly.
orders to come up with the most efficient route in real time and dynamically
Yes.
diverting based on priority and is it an emergency and things like that.
Right. Ross, you got any final last words here?
Actually, there was one, Virginia. You want to ask me about the hopes for AI?
Yeah,
Oh, that's a good
yeah.
one, yeah.
What are your hopes for AI?
Essentially, AI systems are really good at problem solving and troubleshooting. So, I mean, at a high level, I see it as a way to really solve a lot of society's challenges in a scalable way.
Okay.
Right? I mean, Einstein said that you can't solve the problems with the same level of thinking that caused it. So, using machine learning to improve research, whether it's pharmaceutical or any sort of application. I mean, we're seeing AI systems now doing a better job at cancer and heart screening than having a technician or a doctor kind of look through things.
Okay.
New drug development and the interactions, I mean, the chemical interactions that happen are massive amounts of data that a lot of engineers are often trial and error. What happens if we put this and this together?
Yeah.
So I think all of those pieces are important, as well as, I mean, anytime you have a set number of resources, right? So if we're talking about homelessness, poverty, all these different things, drought, farming, there's just so many applications. So I think AI has an ability to potentially solve a lot of these challenges that we haven't been able to solve yet.
Amazing. Those are some pretty good hopes.
Yeah, that's a good way to end. It's a bright
Excellent.
future.
It's a bright future, yes. Not all scary ethical dilemmas, but it will be a bright future.
Yeah, we're friendly robots and computers.
Make robot friends, not robot enemies.
Yeah.
All right, Ross, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, Ross. Hey, wait, do you want to do the like and subscribe thing? You have to do
Oh,
kind of
yeah.
something like that.
Okay. Now, do we know where it is? Is it more this way or
It's that
Uh,
side.
just kind of?
Yeah, that's what we do. Yeah.
No, the other side. There, I don't know. We don't know.
Down here
It's going to
somewhere.
be on one of the sides.
Okay.
Just do both.
So make sure to smash that like and subscribe button below.
All to our listeners out there and our viewers, feel free to comment on any of these videos. We love when you comment on it, and we'll try to respond to you. So think about a comment or a question. You could even ask Ross something that we forgot.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.